Origami Yoda, the best series about Star Wars nerds that need advice from a piece of paper to survive middle school. Yes, Origami Yoda, the beloved series, written by Tom Engelberger over the span of 4 years from 2010 to 2014. The funny, well-constructed, and nostalgic pieces of fiction that these books are. This story marries well-constructed plot and storylines with the weird but charming aspect of comedy that is present in such a fine way that totally overwhelms your honestly very low expectations if you look at the cover. If you haven't read the series, I would totally recommend to read it and then come back to this video, because they're definitely worth the investment of time. In this video though, I want to review all the books and give them a rating out of 100. After that, I will send you back on your merry day, back outside and on your way into the real world. Anyways, before this video begins, this video took hours of work, so if you could sub, that would be awesome. Anyways, on with the video. The opening book in the series is Origami Yoda. This is for people who get confused about what the book is about, so they need that little extra push, you know? For every book in the series, there's a big question, one that the book tries to answer. This gives the series motive and purpose, and it works well with this book, as the question for this book is if origami is real, which I suppose is the main point of the series, but this is almost an introductory hook for the rest of the series. The first few chapters really illustrate the dilemma well. Is Origami Yoda real, or are we comprehensively misguided in our pursuit to decipher the hoax that Dwight has created to erect himself higher up in the social hierarchy? That's how they phrased it, right? The way that this book uses the quick chapter format with the comments, the detestable drawings that, while bad, serve their purpose of being silly and creating a visual representation of the writing that is digestible, and the fast-paced action and scenes. This book first shows the true power of Origami Yoda and how he has the ability to make all these predictions that can help out the surrounding characters. The advice at the dance and with Mike and with all the olive pants you must butt chapter, which I bet some kid was very glad that he remembered that for a certain awkward situation. While Origami Yoda is working his magic, we get introduced to some of the other characters like Tommy, Harvey, Kellen, Mike, Lance, Grady Potatoes, aka Tater Tot, the dynamics and relationships that occur between them. Harvey himself is consistently one of the best characters in the whole series, because he is such a deep and complicated character that has a villainous side and a good side. This is a dependable theme throughout all the books, and he is someone who is the antagonist of 3 or so of these books. The chapter, The Tragic Death of Origami Yoda, is a dark part of the book, Yoda's death marking a low part for the protagonists and a high part for Harvey and his agenda. When he tries to assert his newfound power the next day, he is stopped by Dwight, leading into the conclusion of the book. The ending to Origami Yoda is well thought out, as it includes part that had been present throughout the whole book. The score that I would give this book is 85 out of 100. The only reason why the score wasn't too high was because I thought the drawings were a little bit bland, and I thought the author was still grappling with the whole idea, and it wasn't as fleshed out as it is in the later books. The second part of the series was Darth Paper, a darker book that is set in a totally different mentality than the flowery, happy first book. Harvey as an antagonist is great, and I love his motive, which, as everybody knows, is that he thinks Dwight is too cool for his school. That sentence didn't make any sense, but I'm gonna leave it in anyways, and don't ask me why. This book, like its name suggests, is built around the basic plot elements that The Empire Strikes Back is built on. This is because, like The Empire Strikes Back, it makes you feel like you're losing your grip on the situation, your fingers sliding off the thing that you were trying so desperately to hold on to. The whole descent down, Dwight is being accused of weird behavior at the meetings, and finally being sent to a new school just seems like a downward spiral, always getting worse and worse until finally the end. Just like The Empire Strikes Back, the protagonists are in bad situations and their future is unclear. It shapes the story in a melancholy and depressing way. I give it a 90 out of 100. But I'm just glad that Kellen didn't get his hand cut off by Luke. That would have taken the story down in a really, really dark direction. Fortune Wookiee, the third book in the series, and the only where the majority of the book is without Dwight at Macquarie. The main criticism with this book that I have is that I thought the Fortune Wookiee was a little extra, and I thought it would have been better if it was excluded, as I think it would have magnified their relationship with Origami Yoda and Dwight himself. This book is the start of the books that start to have a lot of drawings and use them well, which is the iconic look of the series. I also thought that seeing Dwight try to be normal adds to his arc and his character, and I'm sorry, Sarah makes my face cringe up on into itself. She just acts like she's so cool, and everybody else, well, they're just lucky to be breathing near her. So, in total, because of the Fortune Wookiee and SARA, I'll give it a 75 out of 100. Now, I'll preface my review of Jabba the Puppet with I don't actually have the book, so I wasn't able to take notes, so this is based on summaries from online and my memories of it. I personally think that this book is pretty great, and the whole Funtime plot, because it takes a very powerful antagonist and pits it against a small group of kids. It's an uphill battle that puts you right in their shoes as they try to push up on the all-powerful corporation. Like, the weird part about it is how they vehemently despise Funtime. Like, they would rather put their academic repertoire, a part of their future, and threaten their principal. They would rather do that than just sit down and listen to the dang educational program stuff. If that was in real life, they would have complained and complained, but not plotted to overrun a district-wide educational program. Again, don't have many notes, so I'll give it a tender and juicy 87. The next book, Princess Labelmaker, is much like Jabba the Puppet, playing off the highs and lows in the uphill battle against the antagonist. The ending is, well, take what you feel when you are sucking a straight lemon while saying "you too" as someone comments, "Have a good birthday." The ending scene is honestly unbearable to read, but I suppose it reaches a good conclusion to the Funtime storyline. I'm surprised that they weren't kicked out. So, because of just how excruciatingly painful the ending scene was, I'll bring its score down to an 80 out of 100. The last book, Emperor Pickleteen, is absolutely my favorite of all the books. I think that it's so well done and so well written that it deserves that. The plot is that the gang goes to a field trip to Washington, D.C., and of course, it all goes terribly wrong. Sort of like Darth Paper, it seems to spiral out of control. The whole rising action part is just everything getting worse and worse. The climax itself is iconic, simply titled Airplanes. The falling action and resolution truly personifies the series, and watching Origami Yoda go is really sad and makes me need the next book, but unfortunately, that hasn't happened. In total, I give it a 95 out of 100, and an almost perfect book. That brings us to the conclusion and the question of all questions for this series. Is Origami Yoda real? No, I don't think so. Dwight has shown characteristics of being able to predict things like Origami Yoda does, like when he solves the things for Cassie and when he does all these different things. Plus, Origami Yoda is a piece of paper. But don't give up hope. Since it's fiction, anything that the author wants to happen can happen, and since the author didn't give us a definite answer, there is no way to say it definitively. So, in conclusion, this book series is a heartwarming and happy reminder of childhood and Star Wars in general, and I hope it lives on. And if you are watching this, Tom Engelberger, then I hope you know I would love a follow-up or a new book. So, I hope you enjoyed